You ever have one of those nights where everything's hanging by a thread, and the thread just happens to be wrapped around your wife's wrist, pulsing red on a hospital monitor, and some lady in pearls tells you she owns the place? Yeah, that was my Thursday. She's not authorized to be in that bed, Meredith said, arms crossed like she ran the ER, not just the neighborhood. I wanted to laugh, I really did, but my wife's lips were pale, sweat soaking her shirt, fever spiking so high the monitor sounded like a casino. The nurse hesitated, glancing between me, Meredith, and the blinking clipboard. I didn't give her time to decide. I told her, I'm her husband, and that login on the bed, that's mine. I designed this trauma system. And trust me, if that monitor's beeping, it's because I let it. You know that rush when you finally stand up to a bully, heart pounding so hard you don't need to raise your voice. That's what I felt, but the only crowd was Meredith and the nurse. Meredith scoffed, said designers don't get privileges, something about my little toy monitor already breaking 3 violations. She threatened more. I looked her dead in the eye. I didn't just design it. I wrote the code that saves people when minutes matter. My wife, Leah, was shivering under a heat lamp behind me, all because this woman wanted to settle a zoning dispute. It wasn't even subtle. The nurse looked ready to cry. The ER director peeked out, but nobody crossed Meredith. My name's Nathan. I fix buildings, keep the lights on, keep the chaos at bay, but Silverleaf Estates was about to teach me how to fix people. Every night, Leah sat on our porch swing, built by my dad. He passed before he could meet his grandkid. That swing, it's the only piece of him left. But the HOA, Meredith's Empire, called it a non-standard structure and marked it for removal. And the fetal monitor I brought home? Not junk, just the only way I could sleep at night, while my wife's pregnancy went from complicated to code red. Every precaution I wired, every generator and alert, was for her. Meredith didn't care. She hand-delivered a $3,000 fine for medical clutter while Leah was throwing up in our driveway. That night, Leah collapsed. I rushed her to the ER. Meredith followed us, told security she was a compliance officer. Just enough to stall, to make people hesitate. People say HOAs are about community order. But what do you call it when the person in charge would rather let a pregnant woman go septic than lose face? Power, that's what. And this wasn't the kind of story where I'd back down. I carried Leah to the car. Nurse offered a wheelchair. Her supervisor shook her head, glancing at the donor wall. Nobody wanted to test Meredith's pull. The Florida air hit me. Wet, hot, sticky, and Leah drifted in and out of consciousness as I got her home. There was a violation slip taped to our door before we even made it inside. Emergency medical equipment, unpermitted. Timestamped before Leah even fainted. Meredith was ready, like she expected it, like she was waiting to pounce. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept one hand on Leah's pulse and the other scrolling through HOA records. Most people wouldn't have gotten access, but I've spent a lifetime writing compliance code for hospitals. These portals are child's play. What I found made my blood run cold. 17 health hazard violations in 8 months, all to households with pregnant women, elderly, or disabled folks. Not one to a healthy single family. And every big fine, always someone vulnerable. Meredith Street? Nothing. Surgical harassment, not community order. Next morning, I called a local patient advocate. Didn't use names. The rep went quiet, said they'd heard rumors of HOA interference, but never this systematic. When I hung up, I looked outside. Meredith was pruning her roses like nothing happened. Jerome, the HOA secretary, lingered by his mailbox, looking, not supportive, not condemning, just stuck. He caught my eye, ducked inside. That afternoon, I plugged the fetal monitor into the porch swing outlet, same one my dad rigged for his breathing machine. I almost ripped it all out, started over. But that's what Meredith wanted. Wipe out every trace that doesn't fit her perfect plan. I stood on that swing, heard the boards creak, and decided if this was about power, I'd show her what the truth could do. Jerome never talked much at HOA meetings. But at the next compliance forum, something changed. Meredith strutted at the podium, slideshow of violations behind her, including Leah's monitor, blurred but obvious. Jerome sat at her right, pale-knuckled, fingers tapping a paramedic's rhythm. When Meredith called me out, I stood and asked if following my wife into the ER was her idea or the board's. The room sucked in its breath. Meredith deflected, but Jerome's eyes found mine. He knew. She adjourned before anyone could dig deeper. As the crowd left, Jerome's pin rolled to my shoe. When I handed it back, I caught a glimpse of a note. One word, septic. Not in the slideshow. He didn't say anything, just walked off. But that message was louder than any speech. 3 days later, a letter arrived. Not a fine, a lien. Claiming weed endangered the community because Leia went to the HOA's Memorial Day barbecue before she got sick. They called it a public health breach. Now, they were coming for our house, our history, everything. I looked out to see Meredith's Lexus idling across the street, sunglasses on, hands folded, watching. At the park, I spotted Jerome arguing into his phone, agitated, pacing. That night, the HOA portal posted a health and cleanliness initiative bylaw up for vote. Buried in the fine print, they could revoke our occupancy rights. She was rewriting the rules to legalize her vendetta. But the Silverleaf map told a different story. Turns out, our house sits at the end of a federally protected triage corridor, a path meant to ensure first responders can reach the most vulnerable, mandated by county grants. If Meredith blocked us, she was violating federal law, risking audits that would tear her little kingdom down. I compiled schematics, violation logs, timestamps, sent them to a media watchdog and, quietly, to Jerome, who slipped a note onto our swing. She's gone too far. By sunrise, I had a 5-page report and a plan. Leia, still recovering, squeezed my hand, told me to keep fighting. She knew what was at stake. The emergency vote came fast. I printed flyers, launched a website, scheduled every email to land as the meeting started. My goal? Make it impossible for Meredith to hide behind process. The night of the vote, the clubhouse filled with residents. Meredith, pearls gleaming, read her agenda, skimming through bylaws like a magician shuffling cards. Then my projector lit up the back wall. On screen, her own words, recorded by Jerome. Pregnancy is not a protected medical exemption. The room shifted, people murmured. I handed out the dossier. That sidewalk out there. I said, it's a federal triage corridor. She tried to use it to evict us. Residents started demanding answers. Jerome rose, confirmed everything. Meredith tried to shut it down, but the zoning inspector stood up, badge visible, voice steady. This board's actions violated both the easement's intent and medical access law. I'm recommending immediate suspension of HOA enforcement authority. The room exploded. People clapped, called for a revote. Meredith tried to flee, but even her own board blocked her way. She walked out with nothing but her disbelief. By sunrise, the HOA sign was gone from the clubhouse. All pending actions were suspended. The board dissolved for investigation. Jerome resigned, but not before helping me lock in the truth. Leia and I sat on our porch swing, watching the sun turn her hair gold. A week later, the new committee asked me to review their charter, vowing to protect the vulnerable. Someone left a plaque. Here, we made them listen. I hung it above the swing. This wasn't about a lien. It was about dignity, about a woman with a fever, a child not yet born, and a community that forgot how to care. You know what I mean? Rules become weapons, unless someone pushes back. We took our street back with truth. If you've ever stood up to power, or want to, tell me your story below. Right and wrong, justice and community. Who decides? I want to hear from you.